Everyone feels it. Something is disastrously wrong with the US economy. No more sugar-coated or manufactured numbers can disguise the harsh reality we're living. Here are 16 critical signs that America's economy is crumbling, and the worst is still ahead. Number 1. Inflation erodes savings and consumer credit debt hits record high. Americans are burning through their savings at a pace not seen since the 2008 financial crisis. The U.S. personal savings rate dropped to 2.9%, its lowest since the Lehman Brothers collapse. Meanwhile, credit card debt has hit an all-time high, and without the safety net of savings or affordable credit, consumers face mounting financial stress as inflation continues to spike the cost of living. 2. Purchasing power will continue to decline over the next 5 years. A new study forecasts that inflation, rising living costs, and housing prices will lead to a significant reduction in purchasing power across almost every occupation. Since 2019, 97% of salaries have failed to keep pace with inflation. By 2028, most Americans will face even steeper declines, making day-to-day survival more difficult. 3. Nearly 20% of Americans are missing monthly debt payments. With the cost of necessities rising faster than incomes, nearly 2 in 10 Americans are falling behind on debt payments. Housing costs and loan payments are swallowing up wages, particularly for younger workers, who increasingly can't make ends meet. This alarming trend is pushing people to the financial brink, and banks are tightening credit, further limiting consumer purchasing power. 4. Skyrocketing energy costs, including electricity and heating bills. Everyone is talking about it. Energy prices have surged, affecting every household across the country. Over the past 4 years, gasoline prices have soared, hitting the wallets of everyday Americans harder than ever. Driven by geopolitical tensions, supply chain disruptions, and shifting energy policies, the cost at the pump has surged, forcing many to cut back on essentials just to afford basic transportation. This relentless rise in fuel costs has become a daily reminder of the growing financial strain on the struggling consumer. And for the average American, rising utility bills hit hard, especially heading into winter. This directly affects basic needs, heating, cooling, and electricity, making it a top concern for struggling consumers. So sadly, many Americans are looking at the approach of the winter months and trying to decide whether they will heat or eat. 5. Soaring food prices lead to more gardening and hunting for survival. Food prices have increased by more than 28% since the pandemic, with some staples rising over 40%. As a result, many Americans, especially in rural areas, are turning to self-sustaining practices like gardening and hunting, reminiscent of the Great Depression, just to put food on the table. Spending on food now consumes 12% of disposable income, the highest since 1991. 6. Housing prices are 24 times more expensive than past generations. Owning a home has become nearly impossible for most Americans, with home prices soaring far beyond inflation over the past 6 decades. The median price of a home is now over $400,000, while wage growth has stagnated. The housing crisis leaves many Americans feeling hopeless, with 64.2% of renters and homeowners expressing negative views about the economy. 7. Student loan debt surges 42% as many see no end in sight. Student loan debt has ballooned to over $1.6 trillion, with a 42% increase in the last decade. For many graduates, the promised financial benefits of higher education have not materialized, and nearly a third of those with loans feel they will never be able to pay them off. The crushing weight of student debt is hindering financial mobility for millions of young adults. 8. Auto loan debt surpasses student loans amid rising car repossessions. With car prices now exceeding $50,000, auto loans have surpassed student loans as the second largest debt burden for Americans, only behind mortgages. Car repossessions have spiked by 25% in 2024, highlighting the financial distress of families falling behind on payments. For many, owning a car is essential for daily life, yet increasingly unaffordable. 9. Discount store shoppers are running out of money. Even lower-income consumers who depend on stores like Dollar General are struggling to afford basic goods. The retailers' slumping sales and profit margins reflect the growing financial strain on these households, with Dollar General recently reporting a 25% plunge in shares. This suggests that the most financially vulnerable Americans are being hit the hardest. 10. Restaurants face bankruptcy as consumer spending declines. The restaurant industry is being crushed by inflation, rising labor costs, and shifting consumer behavior. Bankruptcy filings among major restaurant chains and franchisees nearly doubled in 2024 compared to the previous year, highlighting the collapse in consumer discretionary spending. Families cutting back on eating out is a strong indicator of economic distress. 11. Large businesses declare bankruptcy as costs mount. In the year ending June 2024, business bankruptcies surged 40%, with over 486,000 filings. Consumer discretionary sectors, like retail and fast food, led the way. Meanwhile, operational costs continue to rise, and many industries are buckling under the pressure, reflecting a broader economic breakdown that will inevitably impact consumers in the form of job losses and reduced services. 12. Tech sector layoffs surge as even the fastest-growing industry struggles. The tech industry, once a bright spot in the U.S. economy, has faced massive layoffs in 2024, with over 136,000 workers losing jobs. Despite tech's explosive growth in recent years, even companies like Intel, IBM, and Cisco are shedding employees, signaling that no sector is immune to the economic downturn. 13. Job cuts and hiring freezes reach 20-year highs. August 2024 saw a 193% increase in job cuts from the previous month, marking the highest rate since 2009. Meanwhile, hiring plans have dropped to their lowest level since 2005. With businesses preparing for an economic slowdown, job security has become a critical issue for many Americans facing an uncertain future. 14. U.S. banks close hundreds of branches amid financial instability. In an effort to cut costs, U.S. banks have closed over 550 local branches in 2024. As financial institutions face rising defaults and delinquencies, they are retreating from brick-and-mortar locations, pushing consumers into online banking, which presents significant challenges for those who lack digital access or literacy. 15. Warren Buffett dumps stocks, signaling a major market crash. One of the world's most successful investors, Warren Buffett, has been unloading vast amounts of stock, including over 100 million shares of Apple, in anticipation of an impending market crash. As geopolitical tensions rise and economic conditions worsen, Buffett's actions suggest a grim outlook for the stock market, adding another layer of uncertainty for investors and retirement accounts. 15. Nearly half of Americans say 2024 has been the most financially stressful year. In a MarketWatch poll, 47% of Americans said 2024 has been the most financially stressful year of their lives, with nearly 90% feeling some level of financial strain. The constant barrage of bad news, layoffs, rising prices, and dwindling savings, is pushing many to their financial and emotional breaking points. So, if you're struggling to make ends meet right now, you're far from alone. What we're experiencing isn't just a personal challenge, it's a systemic failure. This shouldn't be happening in the richest nation on earth, and yet here we are. Our leaders have dropped the ball, plain and simple. They have failed the American people and the future of our nation. The numbers we've just shared aren't just statistics, they're a glaring alarm bell. If anyone out there still thinks the worst is behind us, they need to reconsider. The reality is, this crisis is just beginning to unfold, and the months ahead will be critical in determining the direction of our future. This isn't the time to sit back and hope for the best. It's a moment to stay informed, stay vigilant, and demand accountability. Thank you for tuning in. Let's all pull together and demand true leadership and a sound and successful path forward for the American people.